ready to start. So Sam's going to share for a little bit, and then we'll open things up for questions from folks. Again, if you didn't hear initially, GMA TV is recording, so we'll probably at about 6:30 or so check in on how we're doing, and if we're getting into a lot of individual questions, we may kind of call the whole meeting to an end at that point, and then let you connect one-on-one with some of the folks from FEMA. And also, raise your hand if you've been to the Disaster Recovery Center at McClellan Hall. Okay, that has got 2 hands up about that. We really want to promote, let folks know the Disaster Recovery Center for our community is at McClellan Hall on campus here at Vermont State University. When I was going there, it was JSC. And folks are there Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you haven't been there, I really encourage you to get there. The folks are amazing in helping you get your information about your case and then help you upload information about your case. So I'm going to turn things over to Sam. I want to say thank you to Sam, the FEMA team, to Liliana, and the SBA team for coming out. And Sam, the floor is yours.
Great. Good evening, everybody. I am Sam Harvey. I'm the Deputy Individual Assistance Branch Director for FEMA, which is just a fancy way to say that I sort of oversee a lot of the FEMA Individual Assistance programs. That's what I'm going to talk a little bit about tonight. We do have a bunch of other FEMA folks. When I joined FEMA almost 9 years ago, I was given a FEMA shirt. It has since, I think, it shrunk because it doesn't fit me anymore over 9 years. So, and also I feel overdressed being in Vermont like this anyway. So, what I'm going to just talk about, I want to give folks an overview of FEMA's Individual Assistance Program, talk a little bit about how to apply, what to expect, what some of the common hurdles are, and then as we go through, if there are questions that I haven't covered or kind of one-off things, I'm happy to try to answer as many of those as I can. Keeping in mind that FEMA is only one part of the response to recovery that's going on here. There's a lot of local efforts, there's a lot of state efforts, a lot of other federal agencies that are here to assist. I can guide some of those answers, but I may not have specifics if they're outside of the FEMA IA world. Hopefully, at this point, most folks have been able to register for FEMA's individual assistance. If you haven't, it's really aimed at anybody that had disaster caused by the storms. So whether you had major damage, minor damage, if you're not sure, I have a little water in the basement, I think things are okay, I haven't tested my furnace yet, I'm not sure, it's good to go ahead and get a registration. It's free to do. If you find out later that you don't need it, it's fine to call in and cancel it. There's no harm, no foul. There's a couple ways to register, depending on what is most convenient for you. Calling into the FEMA helpline is 1-800-621-FEMA, 1-800-621-3362. It takes probably 20-25 minutes, depending on the info you have. You can also go online, disasterassistance.gov, register that way. You can go to the Disaster Recovery Center, just up the street here. You can do everything there from putting in an initial application, go in and ask for a status update, upload documents, scan documents. All of those services are available up there. You can also download a FEMA's app onto your smartphone and do it that way. One of the benefits of applying either through disasterassistance.gov or through the app is you can create an online account so that you can kind of upload your own documents, get email, text alerts, just as things change. So whichever of those avenues works best for you, you feel most comfortable with, it all ends up in the same place, and you still go through the same process. Once you register, obviously that's the first big step. The next thing that happens, usually within a couple days, you'll get a call from a FEMA inspector. They will set up a time to come out to your home, your damaged dwelling, and go through all of the damage that you had, take a look at how many walls were damaged, how many square feet of carpet did you lose, what's the impact to your furnace, your water heater, any of those other things. That's the first opportunity you're really going to have to tell the story of what happened to your home, what level of damage was had, what work have you already done. If you have pictures, videos, receipts, estimates, all of those are good to have with you at that time of the inspection. They're not required, but it does help to tell the story, especially if we're 6 months on now. A lot of the work's been done. A lot of the things that were destroyed have already been thrown out. You want to make sure that if you can get some sort of pictures or documentation of it, that goes a long way to just helping to ensure that you're getting all the assistance for which you're eligible. That inspector will have a FEMA identification, which should look almost exactly like this. Unfortunately, there are people who will try to take advantage of situations like this. They'll go out and say, hey, if you just sign over this check, we'll get you right in the FEMA system. That's not how it works. FEMA inspectors don't have any money. They don't issue any checks. They're really just there to collect information and maybe give you some basic information about what to expect next. So if you're ever not sure, ask for identification. And that goes for anybody that's in the community that is claiming to be from FEMA. Everyone here from the FEMA team, all 6 or 7 of them, should have their IDs with them. And if you're ever not sure who you're talking to, go ahead and ask. So once the inspection's complete, one of the next big hurdles that you might encounter, or next big steps, is you may be prompted to apply for the Small Business Administration. This is a really easy step to overlook, especially at this point. You have so much else going on that you might think, well, I'm not a small business. This must not apply to me. I have other stuff to do. You kind of put it off to the side. But it's an important step for a couple of reasons. One, the SBA is a major partner in giving out low-interest disaster loans to survivors. They're very flexible, much more open-ended than the FEMA assistance. They can cover a lot more. It can also be approved for a lot more. This is really, if you're talking about replacing the stuff that you have, SBA is a good partner to do it. It's also really important because if you're not eligible, if you apply and you're found not eligible for a loan, you get automatically referred back to FEMA potentially for some more assistance that I'll talk about in a second. So if you have the opportunity, apply for a Small Business Administration loan. If you don't get it, that's okay. You get referred back to FEMA. If you are eligible for it, like I said, it's a great resource to help you get some additional funds to do the work you need to do. There are 3 primary buckets of assistance that we talk about in FEMA. First one is for your real property. So damage to your walls, damage to the floors, the HVAC in the basement might have been damaged, your hot water heater, your furnace, electric wells, septic. All of those things are included in this first bucket. That's part of what the inspector is looking for when they go out. So you want to make sure that they see, hey, we had all of this drywall was cut out, all of this flooring had to be replaced. Because what they do is they look at, okay, there were 100 square feet of drywall. In our system, that equates to X amount of dollars. There's 100 feet of flooring. Okay, so that equates to X amount of dollars. That's how the assistance starts to be tabulated for what you might get back in a check. There are a handful of things that people will pay actuals on. So those are your major HVAC components, hot water heater, your furnace, electric wells, septic. However, you need to submit a receipt or an estimate for those. So you can't just come out and say, oh, we're pretty sure your furnace is damaged, so here's an extra, I don't know, $5,000, $7,000. That's why we need a receipt. But we don't want people to wait to start to get these repairs. I know that it's hard now to get a contractor to come out and get an estimate on some of these things. So go through these processes as soon as you can. Don't wait for the FEMA folks to come out and do the inspection. The next bucket of assistance I want to discuss is rental assistance. This is for folks who are unable to live at their homes because the damage was too severe. It's a lump sum that's given directly to you, right into your bank account. The idea is you use those funds to for whatever sort of temporary housing. Now that can be renting another apartment or another shared living space. It could be you need to bring in a camper that you're renting to put on your property to use it for that. Whatever you can use it for temporary housing. It doesn't have to be in this community. It doesn't even have to be in this state. Just whatever works for you in terms of temporary housing. So those two, your real property, housing repair, and your rental assistance, those are just what you get right from your initial application and from meeting with the inspector. You also have to do things like, if you're a homeowner, you might have to prove that you do own the place. So a tax deed or something that shows, yes, here's my mortgage, something that shows that you own it. You also have to show that you were occupying it at the time of the disaster. So a utility bill, credit card statement for that month, something that shows that, yes, I'm a regular resident here. The third bucket of assistance is for what we call other needs assistance. That's really your personal property. So your clothes, your living room set, your dining room set. It can also cover things like health and medical, health and dental bills, or that were not covered by insurance. Transportation, so if you had damage to a vehicle that is not covered by insurance. Moving and storage, if you had to take stuff out of your place and get a temporary storage unit. All of those things might be available under our other needs assistance. I mentioned the first two. Nothing more than really you're applying, having a valid registration, meeting the inspector. With that third category, though, that's where you have to go to SBA first before you can be considered for your personal property, your other needs assistance. That's why we encourage everybody to do it. There are a lot of folks, when I look into cases and files, where it says, hey, we have provided a small business administration application to this person. They have not filled it out, so they might be leaving assistance on the table. Not only potentially SBA loan, but if they're not eligible for SBA, they might be leaving that assistance for personal property on the table. So again, that's why I'm strongly encourage everyone to apply for SBA. At our disaster recovery center, we do have both FEMA and SBA be there. So if you want to start that whole process, or if you have questions about either your FEMA or SBA process, it should be a one-stop shop to get all those questions answered. It's a real good way, especially sometimes it's just easier to sit down face-to-face, take the time, ask the questions, and go through everything just to get yourselves on track. A couple of the most common hurdles that I'm seeing and stumbling blocks for a lot of folks. The first one is typically insurance. FEMA cannot duplicate anything that's covered by insurance, whether it's flood insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance. So if you have any of those, we ask you to apply to them first. Now, most people I'm sure have found out that homeowners insurance doesn't cover anything for flood. That's okay. We just need that determination from your insurance company that says, hey, yeah, they applied. Our homeowners insurance isn't going to cover any of this. Now that's fine. Then we'll move forward with the FEMA process. If you do have insurance that covers it, if you have flood insurance, if you have some rider in your homeowners insurance that'll do something for you, that's great. Get that settled out. If you have this much damage, you have this much flood insurance coverage, come back to FEMA and say, hey, look, I have a delta. Here are my estimates for the damage. Here's what I got from my insurance company. Now I'm looking to kind of meet that gap there. I mentioned one of the other big hurdles is Small Business Administration. There are, as you can imagine, it's a federal program. There are a lot of little ifs, ands, or buts. So if you're hung up, you get that determination letter and it says, hey, you're only eligible for this, or you're not eligible for assistance at all. That's not a hard stop. There are very few hard stops when it comes to FEMA assistance. It just means that there's something maybe that's missing, or there's something in addition we need to know from you in order to get this process moving. It could be as simple as you need a copy of your driver's license or your tax bill, or something to get that moving forward. Easy thing to get a copy of, bring it up to the Disaster Recovery Center, get uploaded, and get on to the next steps. A lot of folks at this point are getting where they've had a determination letter from FEMA. That can be either email or hard copy that comes to your mailbox. If you're eligible for assistance, that's great. You got some money to move forward. If you're not eligible for assistance, that can be extremely frustrating to have gone through everything, to have damage, and then to be told that you're not eligible. I would encourage folks to read the whole letter, find out what it is that's holding up your assistance. Don't give in to that urge to crumple it up, throw it away, curse my name for giving you false hopes, and you want to go through all of these steps to make sure that you know what the problem is, and we know what we need to do in order to get it taken care of. If you're not sure, call the helpline, go to the Disaster Recovery Center, and ask them clearly, what does this mean in terms of my assistance? What do I have to do to get it moving forward? We want to walk out of there with a solution. We have a lot of folks that are here to try to figure these things out, to try to help you move forward. And then the other biggest thing that I'm seeing, I alluded to it earlier, folks are getting assistance, but it's not enough. It's only some amount, and you have a lot more that needs to be done. A lot of that is because so much of the damage that we saw were in basements. That's where you lost your furnace, your hot water heater. Those are big ticket items. They're expensive. And the amount of money you got from FEMA may not even begin to cover that. But those are also the items that we have to have receipts for, or we have to have estimates for the work. So if that's something you had damage to, and you feel like, hey, they didn't give me the amount of money I was expecting for a furnace, if you have not provided an estimate or an invoice for that work, that's the time you really want to appeal. And that means spreading an appeal letter that says, hi, Sam Harvey, I live at 123 Main Street. I received X amount from FEMA. I'm including a copy of an invoice for my furnace, and I'm requesting those funds from FEMA. That's kind of the process for getting that next big chunk of change to help with those big ticket items. So it can be confusing, especially the first time you have to do an appeal. It's really helpful to sit down with somebody and walk through it and get it done correctly, because if you send in an appeal letter but no invoice, it's going to get returned back to you and say, hey, you're not eligible because you don't have an invoice. And then you send in the invoice but no appeal letter, and they say, wait, we've got this appeal letter, but we don't know what it's asking for. And it can just get you into this kind of grinding cycle of not having the right documentation put all together. So if you're having a hard time with that, talk to one of our folks, sit down, get it done correctly, and we'll try to get there. And a lot of people feel like it's something that is contentious, that you have to come and fight for every dollar. I don't want it to feel that way. As I said, it's not a function of we're trying to shortchange folks. It's just a function of, hey, there are certain things that we need in order to provide this extra assistance to you. So don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to get an answer that you understand. The deadline to register, if you have not already, right now is September 12th. That's the last day that you can put in your initial application with both FEMA and Small Business Administration. For appealing decisions, you have 60 days from the date on your determination letter, not the date from which you applied, but once you get that email or hard copy in the mail that says you're eligible or you're not eligible, there's going to be a date on it. That starts the 60-day clock for when you can appeal. Now, if an appeal comes in at day 62 or 63, are we automatically going to throw it out? No, we're not. So don't focus as much on the 60-day clock, but do focus on getting documentation that says, hey, on this day I reached out to Coda and Coda. On this date they got back to me and they said, hey, we're not going to be able to have an appointment until end of October. And at the end of October is when they provided me an actual estimate. Make sure that when you appeal, especially if it's going to be beyond what you perceive to be 60 days, you want to include all that as a justification for why it's past that 60 days. We're not looking to turn people away on those little technicalities. We just need something that shows, hey, this was no fault of your own. You were doing all the right things. We just need some documentation. And as always, if there are questions about that, call the helpline, go to DRC, and really sit down and talk to someone. I know that Greg had alluded to it, but the disaster recovery center's only been open for a few days now. They're not seeing high numbers yet, so not a lot of wait time if there is any. So I encourage you to go in. It's open 8 in the morning till 6 at night, Monday through Saturday. So try to find a time to squeeze that in. So that's almost 9 years of my career in 15 minutes to you. It's possible I left something out. I'm interested to hear what are some of the questions you might have. What are some of the clarifications I can offer so that if you have that question, I guarantee you somebody else does as well. And also, if you have clarification you can take to your friends and neighbors and sort of share the information, this is a good time to do it. So, folks, questions, comments, concerns, anything but rotten fruit? Yes.
Two questions.
Yes.
I guess what I heard, if I paid for big ticket items, I bought the hot water heater. Okay, and it was cheap. I'm still waiting, the other one on your 60 days. I'm still waiting for Fred to come out there and give me an estimate on the furnace, because I know mine was totally submerged. It's tough. But, and I took the vet ducts out, so I could clean over there. But I've gone as far as I can go. But I'm still at the mercy, as you say. I'm not the only one in the area that Fred or County Plumbing, or I'm about ready to call Fred, ask if they really want my money or not, because I'm going to find something else because the weather's getting cold and I need something. So that's that part, not your part. But what I'm gathering from you, if I come out here and I get you all the receipt or something, say, hey, I finally got my, wouldn't say involved, but my estimate, and this much, y'all will help me cover that.
Yeah, so for your hot water heater, you've already paid that. You should have an invoice.
I money and these plumbing plan, we put it in. Gotta have hot water, man.
Yeah. So if you have an invoice, either for the purchase of the equipment or for the service, that somebody professional has to come and do it.
Hot water.
Yeah. So whatever those totals are, whatever you have on paper, take that with your estimates, your invoices. Write up an appeal letter that says, I'm Sam Harvey, I live at 123 Main Street, I'm requesting assistance for my hot water heater. See the documentation that shows what it costs and get that all in appeal to FEMA for those funds. And then once you do get an estimate or an invoice for your furnace, it's the same process. You submit another appeal letter along with the documentation to send that to FEMA and say, hey, here's an additional expense that I had. Here's the proof that it's going to cost this much.
My next question is, I don't know if anybody else got it. I got stuff from FEMA and everything, that was cool. And afterwards, I get a letter saying that included in that was relocation, money for relocating your power supply, my electrical power supply, and the hot water heater. Fine and dandy, but that came in 2 weeks after I already had paid $2,000 for an electrical guy to come in and do my power system and did the hot water heater.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah, so there is some money. It's not a lot. It's maybe a max of $500 for things like your furnace, your hot water heater, your electric, to raise them off of the floor or to do some mitigation. But it sounds like that ship has sailed.
Right. Well, I thought, they said they paid to move my electrical power panel from the basement. I asked the guy.
Yeah.
I paid $2,000 to replace the power panel in the basement. Well, he wanted $7,000 to put it inside my upstairs pantry room. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, then I get a letter saying, we paid for that. They're like, first of all, that's nice to know that before I laid out $2,000. Mm-hmm. But I still got to go out and have the guy come back, rip out all the work he did.
At this point, I wouldn't, because the amount that FEMA gave you for those mitigation measures, it's not going to be much. It's really just to do simple, put a brick under your furnace or something to
Oh,
get it off the
that-
ground. So,
The hot water heater, there was a problem. The big one
yeah.
is the electrical power. When I get the letters, and like, first of all, the injection unit was that big.
Mhm.
And they want $7,000, and, you know, I find out after the fact.
Yeah.
I want to know, do I have to go out there and pay him another $7,000?
No, you don't have to. I mean, if someday down the line you have the opportunity to move it up, you know, you've got your FEMA money. But at this point, you've already put all the money into it that you got.
Right.
And that's what's important.
Well,
Is you got money for housing repair, you used it for housing repair, so you're good.
Right. But see, what I'm seeing is, you know, I got lucky my funds came in quick, but then I got correspondence afterwards, and, you know, by that time, already had spent part of their funds coming in, I spent a lot of my funds buying stuff and doing stuff, and then I get the fund, but then you get, you know, like, this don't work.
Yeah, so you're in an awkward situation of the money came before the information did.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you receive money for housing repair and you spent it on housing repair, you're all
Oh, trust me, I spent your money.
Yeah.
And a whole lot more mine.
Yeah, I do believe that, and it's a good message really for everybody that, especially with federal funds, people get kind of nervous about, you know, how am I spending it? What am I allowed to do? Your basic guideline: if you receive money for housing repair, spend it on repairing your house, whatever that means. If it's drywall, if it's floors, if it's furnace, you know, electric, just spend it on that. If you receive money for rental assistance, use it for your temporary housing. If you receive money for personal property, use it for your stuff. Now, that's my official response. My Sam Harvey response is that we understand that these funds come in all at the same time. The information doesn't always come to tell you exactly how it's coming. If you got $40,000 from FEMA and you went out tomorrow and you bought a $40,000 sports car and then posted it on the internet somewhere, we're going to have problems. But if you just take all this money and you spend it where you need to, on the things you need to, nobody from FEMA is going to come out and give you a hard time about it. We're not looking to audit everybody and find out where every nickel and dime went. So aim to use it responsibly, but we understand that as long as you put it towards the disaster needs, you're okay with us.
Sam, real quick, just sort of as a follow-up to that point Dennis made, if you're getting money and you're not sure, like letters will come, information will come, but again, going to the Disaster Recovery Center, and I was just up there yesterday going through this whole process, they'll be able to tell you exactly what money came in. They'll also be able to tell you what other things that you might be eligible for. So I know for some folks, doing things online over the phone works really well, but if you like being able to talk to a person and get the big picture of what's available to you, what's coming in, exactly what it's for, going up to the Disaster Recovery Center. And as Sam mentioned, I've been up there multiple times in this first week or so that it's been open, and there's never been a line to get in. And I also am just going to invite, I think Liliana from SBA is taking her call, but when she's off her call, I'll invite her to come up here as well. So if folks have questions for FEMA and Sam or Liliana and SBA, we can take questions on either front. So, and again, we're going to go to around 6:30 or so, and then we'll allow folks to do one-on-one individual check-ins with FEMA folks. And Beth has got something to share.
Something to share. I don't know how valuable it is, but I've heard through many meetings that I've attended. At one of them, they talked about Vermont emergency management helping find grants to help fill those gaps. I don't want to promise anything. It's like not a town thing at all. It's very much a state thing. But I do know that the state does have funds in reserve for helping to subsidize individuals who don't have enough money to do the thing that they need to do. So I would check out the Vermont Emergency Management website very specifically and figure out how to get on their list to connect with someone, because they can help find things like Efficiency Vermont, for example, I know has grants out there right now. September 6th, it sounds like that's going to start opening up from Dan. But my understanding is there are other state funds to help subsidize gaps where they're needed.
And if folks don't know, Beth Foy, chair of our select board here in Johnson, who's just been working tirelessly since the whole flood experience started. So Beth, thank you for the info. Dan Noyes, our representative here for Johnson, Hyde Park, and Wolcott, and Carl Rogers, our town administrator here at Johnson. So just so folks know, some of our local supports who are also here. Other questions or concerns, frustrations that folks have with the system in the process? Dan?
I heard a rumor actually on my way in tonight that FEMA has some trailers available for folks to live in the interim.
Yeah, so the FEMA trailers, always a hot topic, always interesting. The FEMA trailers, these are like modular home type things. They are one part of our direct housing assistance. The state requested it a few weeks ago. It was approved last Friday, and we're starting to get it rolled out now. What this is, there are three components to it. Again, the trailers, the temporary housing units, those are one. We look to either put those on your personal property if you had home damage and if you have a flat spot in the driveway or the yard that we can hook up to power, water, sewer. That might be a spot. If your personal property isn't an option, we are looking at available pads in parks or individual spots around the county and really around the state where we would put a unit there and then connect the homeowner with that spot. So you have to see if is it drivable, is it commutable, does it work for you? So that's one piece. Another piece is what we call direct lease, where FEMA goes out and we contract to lease vacation rentals, second homes, condos, things like that. And we find them, identify them, contract with the owners, and we identify survivors who are displaced to put them in those locations specifically. Again, those can be just wherever they're available. The last program that's part of that is called multifamily lease and repair. It's a bit further down the road because what we do is we look for multifamily, so duplexes, split levels, apartment buildings that are in disrepair and were not livable before the storm. And we put money into them to fix them up, to make them livable, and then we put survivors into those locations. So those are the three parts of direct housing. The eligibility for direct housing is something that is based on what we call FEMA verified loss. So when that inspector goes out and they look at the walls, the floors, and all that type of damage, it comes up to a dollar figure. That's your FEMA verified loss. So based on that, it's determined whether or not you're eligible for direct housing. If you are eligible, we have a team that started on Monday doing call-outs to all of those people who were that met those criteria. Just start the conversation about, is this interesting to you? Are you still in need of housing? If this is an option, is it something that you want to take? And right away, that sort of splits the folks into yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not. If no, you're not, that's fine. That means you've got another solution or you're working on something else, and that's fine. If you are interested, we do a second follow-up to get more details. What are some of your limitations? You need to be near schools or medical appointments so that we can start to dial in where these, which communities might work best to place a modular home. We'll ask you, do you have land on your personal property that you think would be usable? If you think yes, we'll send somebody out to take a look, to verify. If it works out, we are moving units up here from Maryland. And they'll be in the state in the next couple of days. So we'll be able to take out and put in the various communities. So as you probably gained from that, there's a lot of qualifications and permutations to go into it. But the bottom line is that if you are eligible, FEMA will reach out to initiate that conversation, to explain the process, to explain what you can expect, and we'll start to go from there. It was just approved not even a week ago, so we're still in the getting all of the information together, getting the units up here, finding places to put them. All of those logistical challenges are things that we're working through now. So typical timeline from, hey, this was approved, to, hey, we just put a survivor in a temporary trailer. is probably more in the 6-week timeframe, so it's not an immediate solution, but it is something that we're working on. Is that a really long answer to your really short question?
If you're in a mobile unit that was flooded and you want to use the pad from that mobile unit, is that part of the process of getting a FEMA trailer in, if that is the avenue that somebody ends up going down?
It could potentially. There are a lot of ifs and ands there. First of all, your unit would have to have been destroyed, and either you or the park owner, however it's configured, would have to remove the trailer from the lot. If it's in a park, FEMA would have to then identify it and get into a lease agreement with the park owner for that particular pad. So I'm not saying it can't happen, but there's a lot of things that have to sail just right for it.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? I know I didn't explain everything that well.
Is there a deadline to apply to FEMA?
There is. September 12th right now is our 60-day mark. There is the possibility for the state to request an extension, usually in 30-day increments. I know they're interested in it. I also know they haven't done it yet. I suspect they will. I don't know if it will be extended or not. So right now, keep your eyes on September 12th. Ma'am, and then to the gentleman.
And then with the deadline for application, I know, because you said it's kind of like, there are a lot of hard stops, so it seems like it's kind of a continuous process for a bit. Does that, September 12th is when you have to start that, or when, is there a deadline to finish that process, or?
No, September 12th is just when you have to get in your initial FEMA and or SBA registration.
Okay.
There are going to be a lot of steps and kind of rolling deadlines from there, but the first step has to be done right now by September 12th. And there are some flexibilities if you were out on military leave, if you were in the hospital, if you had some other reason why in those 60 days you couldn't get your application in, we can kind of work with that. But again, keep your eyes on that September 12th date for now. Sorry.
I'm just wondering if there's any other money available, because I have flood insurance on my house, not my personal property. I'm eligible for any kind of loan I ever want because my credit score is super, but is there any money, I can lend myself money and pay it back, that's 0%. But to take care of the gap, because my flood insurance I had on my house was $62,000. The insurance adjuster came and told me what it would cost to rebuild my house was $100,000.
Yeah, so
So my 10 grand that I had for a deductible don't even start. It said, well, you still have 28,000 that you're got to cover.
Yeah,
But
so
you know what? I've been working myself to death, and I'm going to get that house built for $62,000. Come hell or high water.
Yeah.
Just because. But the hours and stuff that I'm physically putting in, and the donated time that's coming is what's going to get me there. But is there any monies other than the small business loan to cover that $28,000?
yeah, so for
Because I don't really want to go and get a loan, because then when you're retired, that's not one of those things that you want to go do is get a loan.
So I'll talk about what's right now, and then I'll talk about some things that may come online a little bit later. So for FEMA assistance, you mentioned you had flood insurance that got you here. You've got estimates that are going to be
The
here.
adjuster came and that's all been done.
So you have a settlement from your flood insurance, and you have estimates for this amount. Submit both of those with your, if you've applied to FEMA. If you haven't, I would encourage you to.
I have, but
And-
when I did, I went up here
Yeah.
and we went around and they said, oh, you're qualified for a loan. I really don't want to take out a loan at this point in my life. I want to know if there's any grant money to help cover that gap.
Yeah, so get those two groups of documents together. Your settlement from your flood insurance that shows this, your estimates for your repairs that show
They haven't
this.
sent me my check yet on the flood insurance. I was expecting it any day, but
But hopefully they've sent you paperwork that says this is how much you can get, this is what it's
they
worth.
haven't sent that yet.
Well, when they do that, you can take those two
Those two-
documents.
The adjuster's document
Yeah,
that shows $100,000.
It shows the settlement, that you're gonna get. Here's what you're gonna get from your insurance company. Here's what your costs are. Submit those two things with an appeal to FEMA and say, hey, I have insurance, it's only covering this much. I clearly have this much of damage. You know, can FEMA provide grants for the difference? So get those together.
I'm looking for a grant, not a loan.
Yeah, so that it would be a FEMA grant, not necessarily an SBA loan, for your real property and potential for rental assistance.
Unfortunate, I'm a basement dweller in my daughter's house.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's camping out in the basement. It's not the Sunset Motel by any means.
And if you need to, if she's taking on extra costs, and you can just write up something more than on the back of the napkin, but just write up a lease that said, I, Sam Harvey, am paying $50 a month to stay at this address for this length of time. Then you can use your FEMA rental assistance to reimburse your daughter, pay that rent, so that at least she is not out extra water, power, or things like that. That makes some sort of sense?
Yeah, that's what I was looking to see, if there was grants available, because when I went up there, I did the circle, and when I went to small business, you're
so
golden for a
the
loan.
FEMA grants aren't going to be available until you've settled everything out with your flood
So
insurance.
I got more time than,
Yeah, you're already in the door.
In the system, yeah.
You've met that, you're done before September 12th, so you're good right now.
Yep.
You probably got a determination letter from FEMA that says you're not eligible because you have flood insurance. The date from that, 60 days out, is kind of your target window for when to submit the appeal. Now, if your insurance company takes longer than that, which they very well might, make sure that you have the documentation. Here's when I submitted my appeal. Here's when I got information back from my insurance company. And when you send all your info to FEMA, you want to tell that story to say, hey, look, I'm not late because I'm late. I'm late because I was waiting.
I was waiting for them by insurance.
That flies with us. That's okay. But you do want to make sure that there is some of that story in your appeal letter.
Do I have to do an appeal right now while I'm waiting?
You're not going to have much to appeal because you don't have a settlement.
But when I do have the settlement, then I can.
When you do have the settlement, that's when you'd be able to kind of reconcile the two differences and say what money you're looking for.
Okay.
I also believe that's what the Efficiency Vermont grants will be. It will help bridge the gap between a regular furnace and something that's a lot more efficient, along with
I've got a boiler sitting in my garage right now,
Yeah.
and the plumber brought it. He's got paperwork for Efficiency Vermont. It's like almost $600.
Yeah, so,
Rebate on that boiler.
yep, and just keep an eye on those grants when they come out, because it might
How
help
are you gonna know when they come out?
They're gonna be out on September 6th.
Sometimes some of this goes around and the information doesn't trickle down to the people that really need to know this.
And that's one of the biggest challenges that we're finding is that right now so much of the focus is on FEMA assistance or Small Business Administration. And we realize that there's going to be needs left over after that. So in a lot of the communities, including here in Will County, we're looking to get, I shouldn't say we, but Will County is looking to stand up long-term recovery committees that are going to be sort of the clearinghouse for these various Efficiency Vermont Disaster Recovery Fund, USDA 504 repair program, so that they can start to say, hey, here are these 5 potential grant options. Let's find out your situation. Let's find out what works for you, and bring all that together. Now, there's still the process of getting up and getting all.
My appliances, if they have they're upgraded and they got the sticker on the front door, keep track of that stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
Did you want to say?
So in terms of that long-term recovery group, we're working with Kelly and other folks at FEMA to look at establishing a long-term recovery group. Folks who are familiar with what happened in Waterbury in 2011, they set up a long-term recovery group, and it was intended to address needs that weren't met through this sort of initial phase with FEMA and SBA funds. And also that team then looked at flood mitigation efforts. So the work that was done around the state complex down in Waterbury that prevented them from experiencing significant damage this round came out of their long-term recovery group. So we are working with FEMA. United Way is the organization in our community that's sort of taking the lead. And if folks are looking for information, that if you haven't been on the United Way's website, they have a flooding resource page. So as we learn about things like Dan and Beth were sharing other resources, that's where you'll find out about that information. The United Way has also established its own fund, the United Bank, Union Bank, excuse me, M&T have both already contributed. So those funds are going to be made available for folks who have gaps after the FEMA and SBA funding. But right now, we really are on a push to make sure folks are maximizing what's available through FEMA to lessen the impact in terms of having access from local resources. So check out the United Way. These little brown cards have a QR code, the website, and this they also have information about all kinds of other resources in the community. But right now, we're hosting a flood resource page. And also just want to mention, with what questions you all have been asking, it's a reminder of the complexities of this process. I just want to give a shout out here to Chip, who's available. Chip works over at Community Action, is just starting in a new role there, but Community Action is lending him to our flood support team here to help people work through that process. So if you want to connect with someone, from the community here who's just going to be available to help kind of juggle and sort through things, Chip is the person to talk to. Again, the DRC folks are there, 5-6 days a week, but we know that sometimes people need support at other times, and so I just wanted to highlight that Chip is a resource. And I just want to check over, did you have a question or comment earlier? I saw it or was hearing something, so I just wanted to check. Is there something you wanted to check in about or ask about?
Yeah, but I'll do it after.
Okay, it's great.
Can I just say something about what we were just talking about?
Yeah, and then we'll go back to Pam, and then I'll hand over there, so we'll go back.
There's like 3 different layers. There's the federal layer, which is where the DRC comes in, the FEMA, SBA, that's federal. There's the state layer. I don't know how you talk to somebody that's a state person. Dan is right here. Talk to Dan. But there are state websites, and then there's the local layer. And the local layer, like the United Way, is our point organization locally for bringing all of us together. So that's the first stop, I would just say, because from a town perspective, I can tell you, I can only answer the question. I'm learning along with everybody else. I don't have all of the resources that the people who are set up to handle this type of organization do. United Way is our point. So grab one of those cards and please use it. And they'll help connect you with the Capstones of the world and the anyone else,
Food,
actually everybody, the
medical
town,
care,
whoever you need to
mental
go
health,
to, they can help make sure you're getting to the right place. So I just want to say that, because I think that's kind of lost.
Thank you. We'll go Pam, and then actually go right behind and then come over here, so.
I just had a quick observation. I appreciate, in 95, those of us who were flooded out were referred to as victims. And tonight you called us survivors, and I appreciate the positive.
I just want to say United Way is on vacation so much.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yeah, they've been amazing. They've been going out and visiting people in the homes, facilities. And so, yeah, they did take a break this week to catch their breath to go into this next round. So, but check-ins, Sarah and I and Shannon and Chip, happy to answer questions in terms of local resources. We'll go over if you get a question.
Yeah, question. So, winter's coming, and I've got 2 oil heating systems to replace. And I really don't want to go backwards and contribute to where we are again. And I would like to go with some kind of heat pump or something along those lines, mini splits. There doesn't seem to be any talk about that, with replacing systems that need to be replaced with that. I contacted Bernie Sanders' office. They basically said, well, contact Efficiency Vermont. So there's this loop and I don't think any of us want to go backwards or even buy used systems and put them in and have to rip them out here in the future. So I'm just wondering if there's any talk or anything happening with that.
Yeah, so there are 2 things, and I can't speak much about Efficiency Vermont. I know they're working on some stuff, so we'll hopefully hear more about that later. But for the FEMA money, basically, if you get an estimate to replace your current system, you can take that money and put it into a new system. You don't have to use the money to replace what was there. Now, if it costs $5,000 to replace what you had and it costs $7,000 to put in something new, from a FEMA perspective, you might be on the hook for that $2,000 difference. That's where we, again, not knowing enough about Efficiency Vermont, there might be angles there, but at least from the FEMA side, we'll give you the money to replace what you had. What you do with it is sort of up to you. As long as you use it to put in presumably some sort of heating system, that's all that we care. Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like there's been a lot of push to go with these new systems and grants and things before. It seems like now is a real time to throw money at it.
Yep. This is something Dan's been keeping an eye on as well, so we're waiting for some updates. We've been hearing some rumblings and rumors from Efficiency Vermont, but don't have all the details yet at this point. Dan, is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the idea of the Efficiency Vermont state funding is to bridge that gap between putting back an inefficient system to going to something that's a lot more efficient moving forward. So September 6th, I believe, I'll connect with you before we leave tonight, see what I can do to help. I don't have a ton of information on it, but I did ask them to make sure that their application process was as simple as possible. That's one of the conversations I've had with them, because sometimes, as you probably all know here, it can be daunting to deal with that.
So folks, maybe what we'll do here at this point, we're just about at 6:40, and maybe what we'll do is I'll ask our FEMA reps again, just to raise your hand if you are someone who's from FEMA who can answer questions from folks about FEMA resources. And then what we'll do is allow you folks to, yes, who else, I know we've got Sam here, who else?
Oh, man.
So those partial hands. So what we'll do is give folks an opportunity to check in individually. A couple other quick things though that we want to mention before we wrap up is one of the things that we've been hearing from folks in the community is folks who are been renting and living in the area are assuming that FEMA doesn't have any resources available for them. So please, if you can help us get the word out that if you're renting and you lost personal property, you are eligible for FEMA funds.
If you're a renter, you can apply. You can be eligible for rental assistance if you need to move into a new place, cover that first month's, last month's security deposit. And you can be eligible for personal property. So if you lost clothes, if you lost stuff, that would be your avenue. You wouldn't be eligible for real property because the repair of the rental is not supposed to be your responsibility.
So if you can help us get the word out on that front. Again, we mentioned the cards that are back there. Also want to mention that we've got cards for Will County Mental Health Emergency Services number. And just, want to highlight, we talk about all these things that impact the flood damage, but then having to go through some complicated processes and letters that are, rejection or not quite the amount you're looking for, the stress that creates. So just want to encourage folks to be aware of how that is impacting us as well, and just to kind of make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and also checking in on neighbors. Shannon is working with Sherry Marcelino from the Will County Mental Health, and we've had different teams that have been going out in Cambridge, Johnson, and in Wolcott. Also, they've been doing this in Hardwick as well, just checking in on people. So just want to remind ourselves about taking care of ourselves, but also checking in to take care of each other, because to do this complicated paperwork is stressful enough. And so trying to get into our best space, whatever that means, checking in with a friend, talking to a mental health counselor, checking in with the leaders of our faith partners. And so they had a Reverend Wendy Jane from the United Community Church here in Johnson, got severely impacted, but services back happening. Is that correct, Reverend Wendy Jane? Awesome. So just there are a lot of supports available and just good neighbors in our community. So we want to make the most of those resources. Finally, encourage folks, we've got on the table back by Sarah there, we've got these slips here that just have information about the DRC and some United Way information. You all are going to be in the best position to inform friends and neighbors and family members. Chris was up here earlier from the mobile home park. He's been riding around just checking in with people. That's going to be the best way to get information shared and out. So just invite all of you to take a few of these, to check in with your family members, friends, neighbors that you have, and make sure they know whatever information you have and are also getting encouraged to go up to the DRC. So at this point, we'll go ahead and pause to allow you to check in with folks. I want to say a huge thank you to Sam and the FEMA team, to Liliana and our friends over at SBA. And please check in with folks. And we've got one more thing from that.
Yeah, one more thing, I just wanna, if you are not, or if you know of people who are not receiving information that we're all trying to push out, because Wayne, you mentioned it, like, if there is ways that we can push information out that you think would be effective that we're not doing, please tell us, like, what that is.
Are you putting it out like on the Johnson page on Facebook?
It's on the I'm putting stuff on Facebook. I am personally putting stuff on Facebook and on the website and an occasional front porch forum. I know there's lots of front porch forum posts. I'm trying not to clutter that too much, but everything goes on the website. If I'm saying it,
Because there was one thing, it was like the realtors fund was around and they passed out some monies and I
don't know anything about like I
but
said,
it
I'm
was
learning
like, I
too.
heard about it and it's like, well, that happened a week ago.
So, but if there are other methods, like I can't speak for the way that everybody else communicates, but I can tell you that United Way and I talk daily, pretty much at this point still. And if there are ways we can communicate that are effective, please tell us.
Is there any way, when you know the properties that were going to be affected, getting those people's email addresses so you can directly email
If
those?
Well, actually, what we've been doing is how many of you got a flyer or notice on your door about this evening's event? Okay, we've been finding that it's actually just like going out to see people and deliver things. It's been a little challenging in terms of getting information and what information we can hold. I think we found that this delivering things door to door has been one of our most successful ways of communicating. Sorry, Facebook.
But I mean,
the internet anyway.
Yeah.
at that point, if you're using the internet, go to townofjohnson.com. We link out to United Way, or you can go to uwlemoyle.org. That's their site, and it's on that paper. You can look at front porch forum if you want emails, Wayne. I would just make sure you're getting those front porch forum emails. And then Facebook, if you're on Facebook, those messages, I'm pushing as much as I can without cluttering inboxes. And if you want a lot more information pushed, Jeff? Talk to the guy at the table out there who's handing out cleaning supplies. His name is Jeff. He can tell you the name of the Lemoyle network.
Yeah. And Jeff has cleaning supplies. He's got the Tyvek suits, goggles, all kinds of other things. So if you still need some cleaning supplies, and again, really want to encourage folks, if you haven't grabbed some of the frozen meals in the cooler, to take with you. So at this point, we'll go ahead and break so you can check in. Maybe with our FEMA folks, if you want to come up front here so folks can check in with you. And folks, thanks so much for coming out. Thanks for taking care of our community. And if you have any other questions or feedback, give me a shout. I'll stay up here as well. Thank you, Dennis.